There was something unnatural about the house on Winterhold Lane. People who walked by it too slowly often reported an odd pressure in their chest, as if the air thickened around the old Victorian frame. Others swore they saw faces in the windows, even when the house had been unoccupied for nearly 15 years. No one mowed the lawn, yet the grass remained short. No one changed the porch light, yet it flickered weakly every night, casting long, shivering shadows across the steps. When Jessica and Daniel Harper first saw it, they didn't notice any of those things. They saw only a beautiful, sprawling home that stood apart from the row of drab, cookie-cutter townhouses that dominated the rest of the neighborhood. The Harpers were young, newly married, and exhausted from the nightmare of renting in downtown Boston. The real estate agent barely said a word about the house's history, only that it was priced to move fast, and a gem if you're into character. The price was suspiciously low, but Daniel, with his budget spreadsheet and fixation on square footage, convinced Jessica it was a sign from the universe. The universe apparently had a cruel sense of humor. The day they moved in, it rained harder than it had in months. Black clouds hung low over the house and lightning cracked the sky like something out of a horror movie. The moving van backed up the narrow driveway, tires spinning in the mud, while Jessica stood beneath the porch overhang and watched the windows. She didn't say it out loud, but something about the top right bedroom window gave her chills. "Feels like the Addams family house," she joked, trying to shake it off. Daniel grinned. "Soaked and muddy." "Exactly, but with central heating." The interior of the house was a blend of charm and decay. Crown molding, original wooden floors, stained glass windows. Everything was old, but preserved, almost too well. The fireplace in the living room still had ashes inside it, though the realtor swore the place had been vacant since the last owner. An elderly woman named Mrs. Whittaker died in 2007. Jessica unpacked the kitchen while Daniel focused on setting up the upstairs office. They didn't notice at first that some of the drawers in the kitchen already held utensils. They didn't think twice when the light in the hallway flickered. Old wiring, they figured. The creaks in the floorboards were quaint. The cold spot near the bottom of the stairs, just a draft. But the dog knew. They had adopted a retriever mix named Max a few years ago, a loyal companion who normally greeted new spaces with sniffing enthusiasm. Not this time. The moment Max stepped over the threshold, he froze, stared at the staircase, then let out a low, guttural growl. His fur bristled, his tail tucked, and then without provocation he turned and bolted out the front door, leash still clipped to his collar. Daniel had to chase him down the street in the rain, cursing and yelling the whole way. That night, the house groaned and popped like a living thing. The wind outside howled against the old windows, and Jessica could swear she heard whispers. Not voices, not language, just whispers carried through the air vents. She woke up 3 times thinking someone was walking around downstairs, but every time Daniel went to check, nothing was there. They blamed the stress, moving, the storm, nerves, perfectly normal, rational explanations. But then came the dreams. Jessica dreamed of a woman with long white hair who stood at the foot of their bed, pointing toward the hallway. Her face was shrouded in shadow, her mouth constantly moving, like she was speaking. But no sound came out. When Jessica woke, she could still feel the coldness of where the woman had stood, a chill so deep it felt like it had seeped into the floorboards. Daniel never remembered his dreams, but he began to sleepwalk. Twice that week, Jessica found him standing in front of the door to the attic, eyes glassy, muttering something under his breath. The door was locked, and had been since they moved in. They hadn't found the key. One morning, while making coffee, Jessica noticed a single word scratched into the kitchen table. It hadn't been there the night before. The word was, "Stay." She called Daniel in to see it, but by the time he got there, The word was gone. Not erased, just vanished. That same day, Max stopped eating. He wouldn't go near the stairs and growled whenever anyone got too close to the attic door. Jessica tried calling a vet, but the line was full of static. Every phone call they made from the house came out distorted, voices choppy and broken, like trying to talk through a blizzard. Still, they stayed, because moving is expensive, because ghosts weren't real, because how could they explain leaving a dream house after a week? But the house had already decided. It had new residents now, and it wasn't letting go. 3 days after the table incident, Daniel found the key. He was reorganizing boxes in the basement when something metallic clinked onto the floor. It had fallen from the rafters above. No shelves, no hooks, just open beams. The key was old, rusted, with intricate swirling patterns engraved into the head. It looked like something that belonged in a Gothic cathedral, not a modern lock. Yet Daniel held it up and muttered, "I bet this opens the attic." Jessica didn't want to try it. The attic made her skin crawl. She hadn't said it out loud, but she was certain someone, or something, was up there. She kept waking in the middle of the night to soft thudding sounds from above, like footsteps pacing back and forth. Daniel always brushed it off. "It's an old house," he'd say. "Wood expands. Squirrels, maybe." But no squirrel walks in slow, deliberate circles at 3 a.m. Still, Daniel was curious. "We're paying for the whole house," he said. "Can't let a few creaks scare us off." Jessica didn't argue. Instead, she stood at the bottom of the attic steps, arms crossed, heart pounding, while Daniel slid the key into the lock. It turned with a click that echoed too loudly in the still air. The door creaked open. Dust rolled out like a fog, disturbed for the first time in years. The air was colder, thinner, like they'd opened a vault sealed for centuries. Inside, the attic was bigger than expected. Slanted ceilings, warped floorboards, cobwebs that looked more like nets. The single bulb in the ceiling flickered to life when Daniel pulled the cord, casting weak yellow light over the room. That's when they saw it. A rocking chair, facing the window at the far end, and it was moving, very slowly, back and forth. Jessica froze. "Did you touch that?" Daniel shook his head. "It's just the draft," but the window was shut. So were the walls. No breeze moved the heavy, musty air. They stepped further in. Boxes lined the corners, all unmarked, dusty, untouched. A thick layer of grime coated everything, except one small table beside the rocking chair. On it sat an old photograph in a cracked silver frame. Jessica picked it up. Her breath caught in her throat. The photo showed a family, a man, a woman, and a teenage girl. The woman had long white hair, tied back in a braid. Her face was familiar, too familiar. It was the woman from Jessica's dreams. Daniel leaned in. "What the hell?" There was writing on the back of the frame, written in faded ink. "To Mother, forever watching, forever here." Jessica felt a sharp pain in her chest, like something was pressing against her lungs. She set the photo down, and the rocking chair stopped down instantly. No sound, no wind, just silence. "I'm done," she whispered. "Let's close it." Daniel nodded, suddenly pale. They left the attic, locked it again, and didn't speak of it the rest of the day. But something had changed. That night, the air in the house was heavier. The shadows in the corners moved when no one looked directly at them. Jessica kept hearing her name whispered from inside the vents.
Jessica.
Daniel woke again at 3:15 a.m., not sleepwalking this time, but screaming, drenched in sweat. "I saw her," he gasped. She was at the foot of the bed, just staring. I couldn't move. Jessica tried to calm him, but he was shaking. He didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, they discovered scratches on the attic door. Not animal scratches, not like claws, more like fingernails. 4 long, deep gouges carved into the wood, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. Jessica packed a bag. "We're going to my sister's," she said. Daniel didn't argue. They loaded the car with clothes and Max, who seemed more relaxed the moment they pulled out of the driveway. The house looked the same as ever, quiet, still, harmless. But halfway down the street, the engine died. No sputtering, no warning, just a complete shutdown. Daniel twisted the key in the ignition. Nothing, no clicks. The dashboard was dark. Jessica's phone had no signal, neither did Daniel's. Then Max began to growl again, this time at the rear window. Jessica turned around. A figure stood at the edge of the driveway. The woman, long white hair, pale dress, eyes black as voids, and she was smiling. Daniel tried the engine again. Nothing. The woman took a step forward. Jessica screamed, "Go!" Daniel slammed the door open and grabbed Max's leash. "We run, now!" They fled down the street, heart pounding, lungs burning, until they reached the main road. A car stopped, and the driver, a middle-aged woman, rolled down the window and blinked in surprise. "Are you two all right?" Jessica looked back. The house was no longer visible, just rows of homes and trees, as if it had vanished behind some invisible curtain. They didn't tell the driver the whole story, just asked for a ride to the nearest hotel. That night, they stayed in a roadside inn 20 miles away. They didn't sleep. They returned the next morning with police. But when the officers inspected the house, everything appeared normal. No scratches on the attic door, no photo on the table, no signs of disturbance. "I promise," Jessica said. "It was there." The lead officer raised an eyebrow. "The neighbors say the last folks who lived here left in a hurry. Claimed they saw things too." Daniel stiffened. "When was that?" The officer flipped through his notes. "Last year. And before that, in 2015. Before that, 2009. Same pattern, different couples. Always leaves after a week or two. Place changes hands fast." The Harpers looked at each other. "What happened to Mrs. Whittaker?" Jessica asked. The officer paused. "That's the weird part. She went missing. Neighbors said she used to sit in the attic window every day. One day she stopped. No one saw her again. No body, no note. Just vanished." He looked up at the house. "Locals call this place the Widow's Nest. Says she's still here, watching." Jessica turned to Daniel. "We're not staying another night." He didn't argue. But as they drove away again, this time in a rental, the attic window creaked open by itself, and behind the glass, the rocking chair began to move. Even after they left Winterhold Lane behind and moved into a short-term rental apartment in Salem, miles from the cursed house, the images stuck with her, like cobwebs in the corners of her mind. The white-haired woman's face, the coldness in the floor, the photograph, and most of all, the chair, rocking back and forth in silence. She still woke up at 3:15 a.m. every night, heart pounding, convinced she heard the creak of wood and soft whispers in the dark. Daniel fared no better. He'd begun talking in his sleep again, mumbled fragments, over and over. "She's waiting. Don't open the door. The eyes, the eyes." Jessica recorded one of his episodes, played it back for him in the morning. He didn't remember saying a word of it. But when he heard his own voice speaking those strange phrases, he turned pale and whispered, "That's her. That's what she said in my dream." They both knew it wasn't over. They had left the house, yes, but something had followed them. That became obvious when the dreams grew more vivid. Jessica now saw the attic in perfect detail every night. Even though she had only been there once, she walked through it in slow motion, past cobwebs and dusty furniture, toward the same rocking chair and the same woman sitting in it. But now, the woman wasn't silent. She whispered a name. Adelaide. Jessica heard it over and over again.
Adelaide, 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 Adelaide.
One night, she woke with a sudden thought. She pulled out her laptop and searched the public records for Winterhold Lane. Digging through county property archives, she found it. A document from 1913 listing the original owner of the house, Adelaide Whittaker. Jessica's blood ran cold. She leaned over and shook Daniel awake. It's her, the woman from the attic. She is Mrs. Whittaker. And she didn't just die in 2007. She's been there for over a century. Daniel rubbed his eyes. That's not possible. The real estate guy said. He lied, she said. Or maybe he didn't know. Maybe she's just been there this whole time. She built the house, and now she's a part of it. Daniel sat up, silent. Then he said something that chilled her to the bone. I think we need to go back. Jessica stared at him. What are you talking about? We barely made it out. He looked haunted, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. We left it unfinished. That's why it's still with us. I see the attic every night. Sometimes I feel like I wake up in the rocking chair, like I'm not even myself anymore. Jessica shook her head. You're not thinking clearly. But deep down, she knew he was right. Whatever the house was, it didn't just want to be visited. It wanted something. And until they found out what that was, it would keep haunting them. So against all logic, all survival instinct, they went back. It was a gray morning. The house looked the same. Quiet, empty, waiting. They brought a flashlight, a voice recorder, and their phones, though they didn't expect them to work. The front door creaked open easily. Inside, the air was thick and cold, like it hadn't moved since they left. Dust coated everything. Their furniture remained untouched, but it felt like it belonged to someone else now. They walked straight to the attic. Jessica paused before inserting the key again. Her hand trembled. She's not going to like this, she whispered. Daniel nodded. That's why we're here. The key turned. The door swung open. Inside, the rocking chair was still. The air felt alive. They stepped inside. The photograph on the table was gone, but something new sat in its place. A small leather-bound book, a journal. Jessica opened it. The handwriting was old, slanted, elegant. Adelaide Whittaker, 1909. The first entry read, Today, I buried Henry and Clara. The fever took them both. God forgive me. I can still hear their cries in these walls. Jessica flipped through more pages. Each one detailed the gradual unraveling of a woman's mind. Grief, sorrow, rage. She spoke of dark things whispered in dreams, of shadows that visit at night, of a voice in the attic that offered her a deal. Then halfway through the book, the entries changed. They became colder, detached. The price has been paid. I remain as keeper of the threshold. Those who enter must carry the burden. My house, my rules. Jessica closed the journal with shaking hands. She made a deal with something, she whispered, to bring her family back, but it demanded blood. So she became part of the house, a guardian or a prisoner. Daniel stepped back, and now she's trapped. So she traps others, like us. Just then, the door behind them slammed shut. They turned, but no one was there. The rocking chair began to move on its own. The journal flew from Jessica's hands and landed on the chair, its pages fluttering. Then a voice, soft, rasping, filled the room.
Finish it or take my place.
Jessica's knees buckled. Daniel grabbed her. What does that mean? The room began to vibrate, subtly at first. The walls pulsed. The bulb above them dimmed to red. Shadows crawled across the floor, toward them. They ran, down the stairs, through the hall, out the front door. This time, it stayed open. As they reached the street, they turned back. The attic window glowed faintly. Behind the glass, the woman watched them go. Back at their apartment, Jessica laid the journal on the table. Somehow, it had come with them, though she hadn't picked it up. Daniel stared at it like it might burst into flame. "We have to finish it," he said. Jessica nodded slowly. "But how?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "We find the others, the people who lived there before us. Someone must have survived. Someone who knows what she really wants."